Hey gang, how's it going? It's Brandon Devnich here from i3D Themes with this week's interactive. What number are we at? 83. Oh, I think I wrote 82. 83! As we move closer to number 100, here I'm just going to shift this just a bit here. Yeah, we'll leave it like that for now. Where we share what we're passionate about, what we've been working on in the i3D Themes Design and Code Labs. Hey, how are you? Hope you've had a fantastic week. We sure have here at i3D Themes. Bit of a short week. We sort of took a little bit easy on Monday, but you know we were really working at it and behind the scenes. So in the design lab this week, I will say was pretty typical. Colin, let's just see here. He's been working towards getting the WordPress theme for Oxygen completed. He's been working on it in parallel on a custom project as well. Sort of working on a new framework that he's going to be using for the WordPress themes. And he's working on that in pretty good progress, as well as finishing up the help documentations for Oxygen. And he's pretty excited with the progress. In addition, he's had a ton of other projects to work on, which is, I'm not going to say typical of this time of year, but it's been typical of the last few weeks, definitely. And so that's been keeping him very busy this week. Yeah, so that's pretty standard week here these days. There's not much to tell that's different, is that there's a lot of work to do and not much work on projects. You know, like the Oxygen website template or actually the WordPress theme. In the Code Lab this week, had Adam again. He has been here the last 4 weeks now, helping to accelerate the Pegasus Accelerator, what we're now calling, instead of WordPress page speed optimization tool, we're actually calling it now the WordPress web optimization or web performance optimization tool. Got to practice that a few times. Because it isn't just page speed anymore. There's a whole lot more to it. And it is really focused in on the web performance, not just page speed. Although we are getting really high page speed scores, and in many cases, I would say 9 out of 10 pages score in the very high 90s, 97, 98, 99. Some score a little bit lower, but most are scoring very high. The page speed scores are excellent. But what we are also focusing in on is how fast can we actually make the page load? Because that's really what it's all about, is how fast can we have the page load up? If we can have it load up in what seems to be instant, you're going to have less bounce, and the search engines are going to find that there's no reason to consider the speed of your website to be a penalty, because that is coming up in July. As they are transitioning, Google is now transitioning to the mobile first index. They are blending in the page speed, or the load time of your web page, as a ranking signal. So while they say, this isn't going to affect everybody, just the really slow sites, guess what? That's pretty much any modern website that has CSS and lots of images and JavaScript. It may not negatively affect the old sites that don't use any of that stuff created in 2000, 2004, 2005. The speed of those pages are probably not too bad because they're not heavy, intensive resources, not like today where we've got jQuery and Bootstrap and hero sliders and big images and all sorts of stuff that's going on that's blocking the rendering of the page and takes a long time to load the page. Yeah, it's going to affect a lot of pages coming up here. In any case, we're looking at trying to reduce the load time of the page, not just through best practices, which is optimizing for page speed. We do that, but there are other things that we go beyond that, which we're also working at. We have some really exciting new things that I almost got distracted on this week. I have what's called a Squirrel List. I have well, when we're surfing the web and we have our people working for us, and they give us ideas to say, hey, have you read about this for optimization? I'm like, oh, that's a really great idea. but I can't take my focus away from what I'm working on right now. I'm going to put it on my list because honestly, I feel like I am a dog in a squirrel park. Whenever these great ideas come up, I feel like, oh, squirrel! Oh, squirrel! And I could literally be like running after all these different ideas, but you gotta, when there's so many great ideas going on, you have to focus. So I have what's called a squirrel list, I call it. And we have a fantastic list of priorities, squirrels, that we are going to be working on for the month of April. Anyways, so got some really great stuff going on. But one of the things that we noticed this week, actually we onboarded and did some testing on a different hosting platform that we've never touched before called Pantheon, which I have to say is really awesome. If you're looking for a new web host that is gears towards WordPress, that is high end, Pantheon, fantastic. Which leads me to sort of what I'm going to talk about in just a second. But Pantheon, so we onboarded with that. Pegasus is now validated for that as well. But we realized that not all hosting environments are created equal. We get a lot of people that use the big names. I'm not going to name hosting names, but the really big names. It's like when you type in web hosting into Google and the top 5 people there. Not all hosting platforms are created equal. So while I'm doing all these onboardings, I'm also recording a bunch of data as to how fast their typical hosting environments load a non-cache page and then a cache page, and how quickly their resources load in. And I'll say this information is going to be, if you're looking for a new web host, I think you're going to find it very, very valuable. The other thing we're also doing is we just decided we're going to start benchmarking the other caching plugins. You know, I don't like to compare us to caching plugins because we're not just a caching plugin. There are WordPress caching plugins out there that do more than just caching, like they might do some minification or deferral of some render blocking resources. There's some technical stuff that some of them do, but you almost need to be a rocket scientist. That's almost a tongue-in-cheek comment there. Almost need to be a rocket scientist in order to make some of them do what you want to do. So we decided to start at least benchmarking. Some of them are easy to set up, some of them aren't. One of the really interesting things was that if you go to gtmetrics.com, that's a sort of a testing tool. You can type in your website address and find out how your resources load in, and how long it takes to load the page, and how you're scoring for their version of page speed, which is not Google page speed, it's just their own page speed metric, the Y slow metric. And then they have this other tab called timing, and you can see what your time to first byte is, what your time to first contentful paint, and your load time, and your on load time. And one of the things, like, we expected that our pages were going to load faster, and in fact they load faster than the other plugins. Once you have Pegasus installed, basically install it, you walk away, everything is rosy. It's awesome. But what we didn't realize is that GTmetrix has something called a RUM score. I'm not quite sure what the RUM. I don't think it's the RUM. I think it's something else. But it's something called, it's like a speed index score. And the lower the score, the better. And we were testing on one particular environment, and the other optimization plugins were coming in at like 1,300, 1,200, 1,100. And then I tested with Pegasus, and we got like 400. So we were like 3 times as good for the load time, for the speed index, as some of these other plugins. So we decided, hey, maybe we should probably test these on different hosting environments as well, which got me into benchmarking different hosting environments, as well as the caching plugins and how they are responding on those environments as well, just to give a whole bunch of different aggregate information and present it to everybody out there for when they go to make sure that their website is properly optimized. Because as we are moving forward, I think I mentioned this, Google's saying, hey, not everybody's going to be hit with a penalty as we're moving towards adding this speed index, speed signal into the ranking algorithm. But I will say, if your web page is already loading at 2 seconds or 3 seconds, you're doing great. Probably compared to everybody else, you're doing fantastic. It's those websites that are taking 10, 15 seconds to load. And a lot of that has to do with your hosting environment. But then some of it, even if you have a relatively fast hosting environment, if it is still taking, if you can shave off another 3, 4, 5 seconds. Why wouldn't you, sort of thing? Because for every second that it takes for your website to load, after about 3 seconds, about 13, I think the number is 13%, somewhere in there, percent of visitors would drop before they actually even reach your web page. And so you could be, if you're taking 10 seconds to load, I mean, that's over 100% of your visitors are likely to drop off, which is not good. Anyways, hope you've had a fantastic week. We sure have here. It's been great. Ending on a positive note here. We have a stable release of Pegasus in the system. No known bugs, and lots of really great ideas to work on next week. So we will talk to you again then. Hope you have a fantastic weekend and great plans ahead. Okay, talk to you then. Bye-bye.